Honestly, I wasn't even gonna go live today to give this team any more time than I did yesterday, but I've sat here just I shouldn't say I've sat here in particular, but I've just been spending my day nonstop just getting more and more angry over both what transpired last night and what we heard from Peter Laviolette this morning, which or afternoon, whatever it was, which pretty much confirmed everything that we knew that this core is checked out, he's checked out, and I this team is the 76ers of hockey. They're the 76ers of hockey. That is where we are at with this team. And it's getting to a point where I'm already reflecting on how next season I already just could tell I'm not going to have one good thing to say going into next season. Not one good thing. And I hate that I have to think about that. But this is where we are. Before we jump into everything, leave a like on your way into the live stream, or if you're watching on replay, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. Turn on your notifications so you know when I upload or go live on the channel. If you're listening to the audio version, give a 5-star rating and review. I would greatly appreciate it. So, in terms of the theme of the video here, I want to, or live stream, whatever you want to say, I want to get into the conversation about last night's quotes and some of what we heard today, like I mentioned to start the live stream here. But it didn't clock with me because someone in the chat told me to read what MIKA said. And I'm going to be honest with you, the first time that I read it, I took it way out of context to where I thought the quote actually wasn't bad. With the way that I interpret it, I thought this wasn't a bad quote. But once I reread it last night, I lost my mind, realizing that I interpreted it wrong. And shame on me for actually giving credit for a second, thinking the quote was good. So I'm going to go ahead and actually run the clip of the quote. But I do want to say that, I'll actually run it and then tell you how I thought I interpreted it at first.
Just how disappointing and emotions you feel right now after this game, just given just the importance of it.
It's frustrating, really frustrating. Yeah. I mean, I don't care if we play like that and we win, but if we lose and we play like that, that's not acceptable.
So when I first heard that, I interpret it as him saying that, and again, silly me. I thought that what Mika Zibanejad was saying is, we can't, if we lose and play like that, that's not good enough. And it's unacceptable, especially if we lose. That's how I interpreted it at first when I just read the quote. But after hearing that, he's basically telling us that it is fine if they played the way they did last night, if they found a way to win, but it's only unacceptable what they did last night because they lost the game. And maybe we're reading into it wrong. Maybe we are listening to it wrong, but that's what I gathered. And it would line up, honestly, which is where I can't give the benefit of the doubt because it would line up with everything we hear on a nightly basis with this crap about how have guys like Keandre Miller all the time being like, yeah, well, we have Shesty back there. Honestly, I shouldn't just single out him because I was about to go and say Schneider said it. They've all said it that, we have Igor back there, so it's fine when we make mistakes. He's telling us that last night, if they won, was acceptable. Like I tweeted this morning, that's all you need to know. This core is dead to me. This group of players should be dead to everyone at this point. And if it hasn't got there already, I'm saying for anyone else. But the core just itself is dead now. Like, that's it. Just stop there. Not that we need to hear more, but to me, that told you every single thing that you needed to know, that this isn't good enough, what you have here. And there's no rebounding with this group at all. which is where I go back to again. Why did you pay the goalie $11.5 million? Why did you trade for a 32-year-old JT Miller when the ship was sinking and you didn't know what direction you need to go in as a franchise? And it's very clear right now where they need to go. But now I don't know how they go in said direction, which is blowing this thing to the studs when you have JT Miller at age 32, when you have Igor Shesterkin in his prime making $11.5 million, and you don't want to waste those years. It's really bad. It's so bad that all of us are reflecting on what Gerard Gallant said in his departure, which the reason I bring this up is because it's relevant to the conversation with Laviolette, because we are now approaching, or I should say approaching, we're now at the fact that two coaches basically said the same thing. I'm going to run the Gerard Gallant quote again, just to remind everyone what he said right as he was on the way out the door, pretty much, because I think everyone knew at that point he was getting fired. He knew after the shouting matches with Drury and everything, but take a listen again.
I feel like a missed opportunity, but when you look at the talent that you have in your room, does it just intensify
Well,
that
talent doesn't
feeling?
mean a thing. Talent, it's great to have talent, but when you got to play together and work hard together, and obviously the 4 games that we lost, we had 2 goals. So that's the bottom line. I mean, you're not going to win if you get 2 goals in 4 games that you lost. We scored 5 in the other ones that we won, and like I said, I love to have talent, but you love to have a work ethic and more forecheck and stuff like that, and we just didn't get it done.
And now I'm going to read you guys what Peter Laviolette said today to really paint the picture home. And then I'm going to play the audio version of it, just because there was context that was cut out in the audio version of this one. So I'm just going to read it to you guys first, because Vince Mercogliano, as much as I've made jokes about him in the past and everything, I actually give him so much credit for having the stones to go to Laviolette and asking this question. And, I'll give my thoughts after, but he tweeted, this is a longer tweet, but he said, "We've talked repeatedly about the Rangers' tendency to play an east-west finesse game that fizzles in tight checking environments. Laviolette and previous coaches have urged them to play a more direct style, and while they do in spurts, it's always fleeting. They eventually fall into traps like they did last night, where they get lazy, disengage physically, and make sloppy turnovers, which is why they rank as one of the worst teams defending against the rush. I asked Lavi if that's part of this DNA's core and can rear its head at any moment. He pondered it for a second before resigning himself to admit, yeah, it is." This is from Peter Laviolette. This is what he said. If you have a crystal ball and you knew in advance, you certainly would hit that even harder. But you address it as it's going through the game. Try to address it on the bench. In between periods, it just never really changed. Now let me play the audio version before I give my full thoughts.
Is there a randomness? I mean, it seems like there's been several games where they fall into the trap of struggling to advance pucks, the neutral zone turnovers that showed up a lot last night. Is there anything that you can identify as far as, it comes at a time where maybe they have tired legs, it comes at a time where maybe, it just seems like it's kind of random when things like that pop up.
Yeah, I mean, if you had a crystal ball and you knew in advance, you certainly would hit that even harder. We did, we talk about the things that make us successful, and I think we played a better brand of hockey for the last 4 games with a couple of disappointing results because it didn't go our way. But
I'm just going to stop the clip there just because some of it isn't really as relevant to this conversation. But with that being said, I have my fair share of criticism still with both Gallant and both Laviolette, because at the end of the day, Laviolette's the head coach. He could easily be holding these guys accountable for their poor play, which I know it's a lot of them to hold accountable, but he could be holding them accountable. And I still don't like the stubbornness to get away from the man-on-man structure or lack thereof in their own end. Where I'm having now the hard time believing that this all falls on Lavi's shoulders. Well, I never thought it really all did, but this is where I sit here and I thought to myself today, Chris Drury is more involved than we think. I believe it at this point because the fact that you've now had two coaches that have essentially said the same thing and guys still aren't being held accountable the way they should. Isn't that telling in any regard that there's clearly a disconnect between management and coaching yet again here? It really seems like we have the most random triangle of pointing the finger because you have the players who can't stand the GM and clearly don't like the coach either. They don't like anyone. I mean, they think it's their world and everyone else is just living in it. You have management, which for some reason adores these players and is stepping over the head coach, is what it seems like to me. This is what it seems like. Because I said this to my brother. I was like, yeah, but Laviolette should be holding these guys accountable. But he brought up a very fair point that, well, what if it's Chris Drury stepping in saying these guys need to play, and if you don't play them, you're getting fired? That could very well be the case. And there's clearly a disconnect because you have a guy like Carson Soucy who Chris Drury just acquired, and Laviolette's not playing him. But I digress there. So you have the GM, like I said, though, who for some reason absolutely adores these players. And then you have Laviolette, it just seems like is here to collect his paycheck at this point and wants nothing to do with this group. I take back a little bit of what I've said about Laviolette over the past few weeks. I still don't think he's fully excused in terms of some of the decisions he's made, and I want to make that very clear. But to me, Chris Drury has to go. And I've said it for months. I've said it for a year now. But it's even more relevant when there's clearly another disconnect between management and coach. And this would be the second time that it's got this bad. And a coach is openly bashing now the core of the team. And if Laviolette is acknowledging that this isn't good enough, you have to think that at some point he's had conversations with management to say it's not good enough. But Chris Drury, I guess, is just leaving it as it is. Until Chris Drury goes, I don't know where this gets better. I really don't know where this gets better until Chris Drury goes. He's the biggest problem of them all. And he thinks that this is just a one-man... I don't know if he thinks this is a one-man show or whatever, but the fact that he is pampering this core as much as he is absolutely embarrassing. He has to move multiple pieces of this core. And you know what, though? Even if he does, I'm sorry, he's not the guy I trust to handle the moves going forward. Because there's no way you could look at what he's done to this D-core over the past months after getting rid of Trouba, after getting rid of Lindgren, and say, you know what, I trust him to move guys potentially like Chris Kreider and Artemi Panarin and MIKA ZIBANEJAD and replace those guys. I don't trust him one bit. And it seems like the toxic work culture has just got to the coach here. And then you have the players who just refuse to play the game that you need to win. Genuinely, fuck them. Genuinely. Like, I don't want to hear any more excuses for this group of players. I don't want to hear anything about small retooling the roster. If they don't make significant changes, why should we care? Why should we care when they don't care? Why should we care when they're here? There is nothing to like about this group of players. I don't care that they went on 2 conference finals runs. Cute. I've seen it before in my life. I've seen conference finals runs. I saw a Stanley Cup finals run and then a conference finals run the year after. And they won the President's Trophy in that year. Cute. I don't care. Because this is the biggest fuck you to multiple coaches who've lost their jobs ever since. And again, Gerard Gallant isn't immune to criticism because he made a lot of poor decisions in his own right. But he hasn't got a job in the NHL since because of these assholes. Peter Laviolette, he's had enough. I mean, multiple guys have lost jobs over this group of players. So I genuinely I despise them. Truthfully, I despise this group. I don't care. Nothing is going to get that to change. Unless they somehow, some way, and this is again, somehow, some way, win a Stanley Cup, which that's not happening with this makeup. No. So that's my piece. I'll get to the chat and see what you guys are saying since I have not looked. I just wanted to open, give the thoughts, run through the video clips of what ZIBANEJAD said, of what Laviolette said. And yeah, let me get to the chat though. Let's start with the super chat here from High Plains. Thank you for the £5 there. Off topic. The comment I can't get over was from last night is, why are you mad? It's just one game. You're right. It's just one game. I can't get over that either. Should put that on shirts, right? Let's see though. You could just see Laviolette is lost and has gave up. While he does deserve to lose his job, he is far from the main problem. Until Drury and the players go, nothing will change. No coach is fixing this. Who's going to want to coach here? That's the other thing. Who's coaching here? Until Chris Drury goes, why the hell would anyone coach here? Could somebody tell me to collect their last paycheck and then not coach in the NHL again? Why in the world would anybody at all coach this hockey team when this group of players gives up on every coach, and when management is both overstepping the coach, clearly, and when management's not supplementing the coach with the right group of players to win? Why would anyone coach here? And this too. There's no world where Drury deserves to hire a third coach, especially in this little amount of time. No way. No way. All I could say too after this, there is zero reason for anyone to show up to games. There already wasn't a reason. Don't go to games. Don't. Because this group of players thinks they could get away with just collecting their paychecks off of us and not having to give us a good enough product. No, fuck them. And yeah, I mean, this is a great comment too. Someone should have asked Laviolette about what MIKA said. I don't blame you. That game actually has implications too tomorrow, Kaylee. So I don't blame you. Yeah. It's the only thing. It's just like every single time I think it can't get worse, it somehow does. That's what's incredible about this entire thing. Somehow, some way, it just gets worse and worse and worse. But we're just at the point where it's the boy who cried wolf, and there's just no benefit of the doubt for me to these players. I definitely think Jury has a lot to say with what goes on. I definitely think it's part of it because I don't know. To me, there is just no way that two coaches now, you could even say three with Quinn every now and then a bit, but mostly two coaches, that there's no way they've both seen and said basically the same things here about this group and tell me that Drury doesn't have some sort of say, considering the lineup decisions are very similar. But again, this does not fully excuse Laviolette. I want to make that very clear. You got, if for the people in the chat that are wondering what Mika said, you got to go back. I'm sorry, and I hate to be like that, but you got to go back earlier in the live stream when I ran the clip. Long story short, though, he basically said that if they won last night, then it's all right, but because they lost, it was unacceptable, the effort. Pretty much what he said. And I don't get it either. Why Chris Drury caters to these players, even though they hate him. Chris Kreider's checked out. Chris Kreider's absolutely done. I just have... Yeah, there you go. If you want the timestamp. I've just had enough. I really have. And yeah, I wish they had an owner, especially like the Mets do, and definitely a GM. The fact that somebody wearing a letter, though, said it's okay, that effort was okay if we won. If it was up to me, no one would wear a letter the rest of the season for that one. There's no way. Nope. Yep. And whose fault is that? Chris Drury. And the fact that there might be, because I also saw, I saw that the ticket prices might slightly increase for next season. Who the hell is getting season tickets next year? Who the hell is renewing them? There's just no way anyone is. Or at least anyone should. And there is no captain at all. JT Miller, the guy that everyone thought should be the captain, no goals in the last 8 games when it's the most important games of the year. And they acquired him because he would allegedly make an impact on these sort of games. He has been nowhere to be found. And to me, someone commented it last night, and I will keep referring to it, and I apologize because I forgot who commented it. JT Miller looks like a follower and not a leader. Because has anyone seen him like do anything leadership worthy outside of getting in scrums? Like Sam Carrick does that. Does that make Sam Carrick a leader? There's no way. There's absolutely no way. And yeah, alpha male. So they went from losing without JT Miller to losing with JT Miller. And I get that it's one guy. And I get that one guy can't fix every single thing. But him coming in here and like we haven't heard him say anything. Like what we wanted from JT Miller or someone that would actually change the culture coming in here. We want someone that would hold these guys accountable. Do you see any of that? I don't see any of that. Maybe I'm wrong. Not you see any of that.
What the fuck? What's up?
I don't know if you heard my whole JT Miller rant before, but
Yeah, I was in the I was in the background. I heard everything.
yeah. So, do you see any of that? Am I missing something here? Because I feel like I'm
No.
not.
No, but this is why, like, and I put it in the group chat. It was either last night or was it this morning? But I said, like, this is the reason why we didn't want JT Miller here. This is why we didn't want the trade to go down, and not because JT Miller is a bad player. JT Miller is a good player in his own right, but you're bringing in JT Miller, a guy who's 32 years old, a guy on a long-term deal. He's got 5 more years after this, and you're bringing him into a team that's a sinking ship. Has a D-core comprised of, apart from Adam Fox, a D-core that's comprised of 6th and 7th level caliber defensemen. You have an overpaid goaltender in Igor Shesterkin, who's going to be locked up for the next 8 years, making $11.5 million. You have supposed superstars, the quote unquote leaders of this group that disappear come playoff time. Whenever the games get chippier and closer, they disappear. You have a coach in Peter Laviolette, who I personally like, but I'll admit, he has checked out and he does deserve to lose his job, even though it's not entirely on him. And you have a dumbass in the front office named Chris Drury. And you factor in all those together and you do the math problem and you add it all up. And Chris Drury managed to say, yes, JT Miller is the answer. That's going to turn this franchise around, is going to make them a cup calendar. You could have presented those factors to somebody who didn't watch hockey and they would say, yeah, that's not the answer. And it was obvious. And again, JT Miller, good player, but has come here and has floundered and has sunk in and has just molded himself with the shit, because that's what happens. Because I've said this before, when you make a culture changing move, you have to get rid of the shit first. And then that's when you establish the culture changer. No, but Chris Drury decided to go half-ass backwards, and he did the backwards way like he normally does, because again, it's the Chris Drury way.
Yep, that's just, and it was Anthony that said it last night. And listen, I'm not saying that none of us on the screen right now that you're looking at expected JT Miller to come in here and fix everything. We're just saying that the whole perception from the fan base and what we were told was that he was going to come in and change the culture. It worked for maybe the first 5 games he was here, and they still weren't even winning. It was more just individual performances from him. But I just look at the difference between what the Mets did this past year, where when they looked themselves in the mirror and had to turn things around, they said, we're going to hold guys accountable. And you saw it in the documentary that just released, where they were talking about the biggest thing that we needed to start doing was both playing a little loose, but also holding each other accountable when times are going poor and when times are tough. None of that's happening here. And a guy like JT Miller, who everyone thought could be that type of guy, nope. It's
Well, you got to give him
completely
time.
different.
Come on, you got to give him time. You got to give him like at least 10 more years. Like, come on, I feel like you're being a little too impatient with JT Miller. And not to mention, he's the only guy. He can't be the only guy doing anything, because even though everybody's talking him up in that way, and you traded, I don't know, your best defensive prospect for him, a top 6 skater, a first-round pick for him, he's not going to change everything. And we already knew that he wasn't going to change everything, but that whole mindset or that entire criteria, everybody wants to move the goalposts on that. That's fine. But what MIKA ZIBANEJAD said, just from, I mean, I'm not surprised. Any of us, I'm not surprised that that's the mentality. But to say that openly, how can anybody say that that's okay? How can any of that get swept under the rug? And it will be. It 100% will be in the next 2 days. Everyone will forget about it. But this is who they are. This is exactly who they are. And this is what we have said since the very beginning. This is who they are. They are complacent. They are okay with being mediocre. They are okay with having their ass handed to them in 6 games against Florida because they know that Igor can just stand on his head for us to win games. And then once we said, like we have said multiple times, you've enabled that every single time. You have enabled that identity that Igor can do everything by paying him. So again, continuing to double down on this mediocrity, continuing to double down on things, even if somebody is great individually, they're great individual stats that they've had. I care about the actual team winning and playing a winning brand of hockey, which they don't. So you can tell me that JT Miller has this many points in this many games. Well, guess what? Guess where you are right now. You're on you're at the end of the end of the playoff race. You're out of the playoff picture at this current moment. You got 13 games left. And there's nothing, and nothing has changed. What seriously has changed this year besides, I don't know, MIKA looking less half dead than dead? I mean, what has really changed with JT Miller being here? More fights? Yay, fights!
Their penalty minutes have gone up because he's taking a penalty every single game at this point. So that's really the other thing that's changed, although he's kind of filling in the Trouba role in that way of just taking a penalty every game. But yeah, it's just
number 8.
Yeah.
You know what though? I was gonna say one more thing about JT Miller though, because the one thing that did piss me off today was the optional practice that they had today. And listen,
I didn't even get into that.
But the optional practice, right?
Yeah.
Because I know like those things are like, because people the one guy told me on Twitter.
Well,
that,
actually,
that, it's built in, and the only way you get that changed is if you go to the NHLPA and you give them an actual reason why it needs to be changed. Okay, fine. If that's how it is, okay, cool. But then tell me this: if JT Miller was the culture changer, why didn't he, as the leader in that locker room, go to everyone in that locker room after the game? Is like, listen, yo, guys, tomorrow's an optional skate, but we played that shit tonight. We're all fucking going to practice tomorrow, and I don't want to hear anybody complain about that. That's not against NHLPA rules. He's being a leader. He's stepping up. But of course, he's supposed to be the culture changer, and he himself wasn't even there at practice. MIKA ZIBANEJAD, a guy who wears a letter, wasn't there at practice.
What about Vincent Trocheck too? The guy that was supposed to get like the new letter because he's friends with JT Miller. Remember, everyone thought he was going to be the new captain.
Yeah,
Trocheck,
where was he?
The great Chris Kreider. He wears a letter. He was there, right?
Keandre Miller, who was talking about how they played like shit last night. He wasn't there.
So wait, but Chris Kreider wasn't there? You're telling me he wears a letter?
No, he's up there.
You know what's even better about all this too? One of the guys that showed up to optional practice this morning was Igor Shesterkin, and even though again we still have our opinions of the contracts and everything.
Yeah,
like he's the one guy who didn't have to show up today, and I wouldn't have batted an eye.
I would, if this season was just based on the game that they had yesterday, if that's, again, they paid him to stand on his head. So it's like, again, like that's the thing. It's like, that's how this is all set up is, he needs to stand on his head, and everybody in front of him, like we've said, is a bunch of third pair defensemen doing jobs that they're not capable of doing. Not to mention that one defenseman that they got at the trade deadline is already a healthy scratch now. Who could have saw that coming? I mean, come on. I mean, yeah, exactly. I can't even like, again, it's come to the point where I'm like, okay, yes, we can be objective in these ways, but this has gone on for so long and has deteriorated for so long where I'm just like, hey, oh well, right? Enjoy the show. Like that's it. Like I know I sound like an asshole in that way, but it's like, what else can I say anymore? I have spewed the facts and what is actually going on. We all of us have for so long. Like, what else can we do but just sit here and watch it continue to unravel? Because obviously we don't control what's going on in the front office. If there was, then, I mean, not to brag, but it probably would be going better.
Yeah, I mean, because the bar is at the Earth's core right now. I mean, that's what it is with this team in general. But that was the entire point we all made when Igor signed that contract. Like, they'll lose games 2-1 instead of 4-1 or 5-1. Cool. But Chris Drury has had multiple chances for what, 5-6 years now to build a good roster in front of the goalie, and it still doesn't matter. And now he's making more money. And this is also a big problem. You have Chris Drury who just doubles down on his mistakes, which Matt was
and just doubles down on subpar moves that everyone thinks it's like, oh, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now listen, Will Borgen has been solid. But to tell me that this is a first pair defenseman and should be like paid, what is it like? What is he getting? Like
4.1 million.
4.1 over the next 5 years. Give me a break. I mean, there was no reason to do that. Like, absolutely no reason, especially after what you were seeing Carson Soucy go for third round picks. But that's probably just more dumb luck with just Drury being at the helm. But I just there's so much wrong, and it's like you can't tell me that it's like, oh yeah, after what you're seeing on the ice, you're like, oh, let's lock something in for next year. You know, we guarantee want this here next year. Because to be honest, at the rate that this is going, I don't even have like that much of hope that Chris Kreider will be gone next year. I feel like Laviolette is going to be the only subtraction.
It wouldn't surprise me at this rate.
I'm serious. Like I'm really scared that that's going to be the reality. But at any point, I mean, I could rant as much as I can, but I'm not shocked. Like I'm not shocked. Like yeah. Go.
I think Kreider will be gone just because he was one of the guys mentioned in the memo, but it's not like he's going to get much value from anyway.
Oh,
I mean,
the threatening memo? Forgot.
Yeah, the threatening memo. No, but at least I think he'll be gone, but I don't think they're going to get much from him in terms of trade unless like some fucking GM decides to just give Chris Drury something or whatever for him. But at this point, just relieve me of $6.5 million of cap space for the next 3 years. I don't care. But again, this is where the Rangers and Chris Drury have always missed the boat on evaluating talent and deciding on to get rid of guys, because I've mentioned, you know, this was a guy in Chris Kreider who came off a 39 goal season last year, and if you actually watch the games, you could see that the decline at the 5v5 level was already through the roof last year, because majority of his goals were through the power play. So you could see that there was a decline in his game already. And what Chris Drury should have done is said, okay, listen, you know, Chris Kreider, thank you for everything, but you know, we're trying to move in a different direction. We see a decline in your game. I'm going to move on from you. And at that point, Chris Kreider, like I said, a 39 goal season last year, coming off of 3 straight years of 30 goals or more, had 52 goals the previous 2 seasons. Some GM would have been out there and said, oh, Chris Kreider, yeah, proven playoff performer, proven big game player, even though
also doing that in the middle of his 30s, so you don't know how long that's going to last.
So and some GMs would have said, okay, listen, Chris Kreider, he might be towards the end of his career, but you know, we're trying to go for a cup here now. Let me try to add him and let's see if he helps. And then you would have at least came around with something. But now you have Chris Kreider, who had just a terrible year this year. What he said, like 13 goals and 4 assists, or 15 goals and 4 assists, just terrible. And factor in the back and the fact that he's checked out, what GM is going to offer you anything in a package from you? You're not
No.
going to get anything from him.
Yeah, this is
Especially
what I, this
when
is what I
Brad
feel is gonna
Marchand went
happen.
for as low as he did. Like Brad Marchand went for not even a guaranteed first. There's no way they're getting anything more than what, a 3rd round pick for Kreider, and that's at most.
This is what I'm fearing that is going to happen this offseason. They're going to shop him around. No one's going to want him because who would at this current moment of his current value? And they're going to be stuck with it, and they're going to be like, oh well, he's been with us for a long time. Let's not embarrass him. Let's not cut him. Let's not buy him out or anything. Let's not do anything. So, well, he'll be back. Don't worry. I think we can resolve this. We'll find a way. Bring in more Sam Carrick level skaters. Bring in more of these guys to complement him, and that's going to be it. That's like, I mean, I'm just like, I feel like you're in a position like, who is going to want him at this current moment? Like, I understand like Anaheim is Anaheim and they wanted Jacob Trouba, but like he's still, I mean, he had expiring term, right? He has a
one more year left.
modified, he has one more year left. Kreider is getting paid through 2027. Like there's 2 years left.
You're going to have to retain it probably if you want to get rid of him.
Yeah, and like Steven is saying in the chat here, if we get a 3rd round pick for Kreider, we'll just flip it for another Carson Soucy type defenseman. So what does it even matter? I want to get to some starred comments here though, but this is what I was gonna bring up before, that holding each other accountable starts right at the top, but Chris Shari just does not do that at all. Thank you for the $5 here, NG. No way this team isn't screwed for years to come until this entire core is gone. Question is, how long until then? 3 years, 5 years, 10? I have said for months now that it's forced the way they're trying to extend this window, which by extending the window, all they're doing is selling you that this team could get into the wild card, and they've been to the conference finals before, so maybe they'll be dangerous.
Yeah.
But that's really about it. Like, and that's probably going to last 3 to 4 years until all of these guys are completely cooked, and Igor's probably a backup goalie at that point, the most expensive backup in the league. So that will be fun.
His contract hasn't even started. Did you guys know that? Everyone? Did you know that?
Yep, because everyone on Twitter reminds me of that when I say 11.5 million when he lets in a bad goal.
It hasn't even started. So you know what? This year it's like a trial run, like
it's
how
like a
this will
throwaway
go.
year.
Cause like if you don't want it, you can just get rid of it, right? Like that's how contracts work, right? Kiss my ass. Sorry.
It's time to healthy scratch Lafreniere. And what's funny too about all this,
scratch about 70% of this roster, but go ahead.
I was just gonna say though, with Lafreniere, like, I love how now we're at the point where it warrants Lafreniere getting healthy scratch, then they won't do it. But when he was actually trying to develop and be the first overall pick that we were expecting him to be, they were like, you know what? Let's healthy scratch him. Let's put him on the 4th line with a couple of bums. Let's play him with Dryden Hunt. But now that he needs to be held accountable, but he's getting paid the big bucks, so no, we can't sit him. It's just completely ass backwards. So I just can't understand it. When I don't understand when they need to develop someone, hold them accountable. When guys actually need to be held accountable, get rewarded with more ice time, like Chris Kreider last night.
Or Ryan Lindgren the whole season.
JT Miller hasn't scored a goal in 8 games and making $8.5 million a year. Mika Zibanejad as a 60-point player making 8.5. Fox can't push a shopping cart out of the crease, 9.5. Also, Flake Andre Miller not showing up for an optional skate the day after he openly admits he didn't try hard enough in a game is exactly why he needs to be traded. Yeah, that's the problem. Like, you just listed 4 different players there, and one of them, no move clause kicks in this offseason. One of them already has a no move clause. One of them you just acquired, and the other one's due for a contract. Realistically, one of those guys are probably getting moved this offseason at the most. So they can cut out Chris Kreider all they want. It's not going to mean jack shit when you still have those guys that you mentioned there for the reasons you laid out.
I don't even know if any of those guys moved. I could see a realistic world where all 4 of those are back. Because JT Miller's obviously not going anywhere. They just acquired him. Mika, okay, you could get rid of him, but he holds the cards with the no movement clause. You're not moving Adam Fox, because even though he hasn't been the Adam Fox of old, I mean, for $9.5 million, he's still relatively one of the better defensemen in the league. And Keandre Miller, I just have a bad feeling he's gonna get the fucking 5-year at like $6.5 million extension.
That's what's going to happen if they trade Kreider. They're going to just pay Keandre Miller right afterwards. Like that. That's what I mean. It's like, what dumbass move are they going to make after they do something right or something that they should have done? I don't know, 2 years ago.
Always a catch.
I mean,
Trade Trouba, extend Igor.
It's just one
Trade Kreider.
game. It's just one game. It's just one season, guys, plus 30 more without a cup.
They had no problem embarrassing Leach. Chris Drury has not shown me he has the stones. The same organization that bought out Lundqvist. Chris Kreider, though.
Anybody in their mid 30s, Drury will not ridicule, but any young kid, he'll just toss him to the side at any chance.
The Rangers right now are like a woman with 3 kids in her late 30s, desperately trying to find love on the dance floor of the club when everyone knows she's going home alone. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Like, there's just no solution to this shit at all. Which is why I said next year, it's like I already am thinking about how going into next year, I am going to be saying the same exact shit that I just simply do not care and have no expectations. Because even if, like I said before, you guys hopped on, I was saying before, even if there's a world where Chris Drury does move Kreider, does move Zibanejad, does move Panarin, do you trust him to replace those guys with the right players? If your answer is yes, I don't know what GM, like, I don't know why you have faith in him, and I don't know what you've seen from this GM to prove that he is worth it. He has somehow moved on from Jacob Trouba and Ryan Lindgren, who were 2 of the worst defensemen in the league, and has somehow made the D-core worse since those guys have left.
It takes next level genius and mastery to trade away Jacob Trouba and Ryan Lindgren and somehow make the decor worse. Like, God, it's like Billy Epler and Billy Van Wagenen levels of dumbassery.
And yeah, like this is the thing, because there are still people that say it's Jeff Gordon's fault. I think only 2 contracts that are on the books right now were signed by Jeff Gordon. Chris Kreider's contract, and I forgot the other one that was
Jeff
Panarin's,
Gordon
right?
set up a
Yeah,
landmine
Panarin's.
for you.
Panarin.
I don't want to hear shit. Like Jeff Gordon, as much as the Trouba trade was a disaster, like he set something up that was like, I mean, I think I said this earlier today or I don't know if it was in the morning or whatever. And I said, I was like, like the way that they set this thing up, Panarin chose to play for him. Fox forced his way to New York. You acquired NHL ready talent. You acquired NHL ready talent for Nash, McDonough, and Brassard in the Brassard deals. You got picks number 1, 2, 7, and 9 in 4 consecutive drafts, and in record time, you still have managed to fuck everything up.
Yeah,
that's why I can't give Drury because people say,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
but
the thing.
you know, but this is why like whenever people say like, oh, but Drury wasn't the one who gave Trouba the contract, that was Gordon. Okay, but who gave him the captaincy though? Chris Drury. So he essentially doubled down on the contract and justified it. Not only that, but he allowed Jacob Trouba to go in the offseason, was it the offseason before? Yeah, because he was named 22-23. But the offseason after he was named captain, he let him essentially have roster influence. Why was Blake Wheeler here? Jacob Trouba. Why was Andrew Kopp here? Jacob Trouba. And I know
they let Trouba push this management group around the second he walked in the door, because he wanted to play for just New York or Detroit, and somehow he bribed this organization into giving him $8 million. He was blackmailing them from the get-go. Like, that just shows you everything you need to know about this shit. And it's like I tweeted the other day, just looking back at that list where this tweet from a Canucks fan here, the Rangers are starting to terrify me. Yeah, well, it's not looking terrifying anymore, but the list of guys here, Kaapo Kakko, Vitaly Kravtsov, Elias Anderson, Keandre Miller, Niels Lundqvist, Filipino, Brett Howden, Igor Shesterkin, and then this was before they got Panarin. This was before they landed Fox. And then this is before they also got Alexis Lafreniere with the first overall pick. None of those guys outside of Igor, who they drafted in 2014, and Adam Fox, who forced his way here, made serious impacts in those conference finals
It's always
runs.
that one case that always justifies this for some reason. It's like, oh well, we drafted Igor. Yeah, it's like the constant overcompensating as to where, like, how this is actually good. Like an actual, like, good organizations actually have a system as to where they draft, develop guys, or maybe reclamation projects like how Florida has done before. But we're nowhere near that. Let's just say that.
No.
It's like, I don't even know. Again, they had it there, and it's been proven that Drury cannot handle this. He, like, even if you do, let's say you wipe all the books clean just by some magic way. Mika's money is off. Miller's gone. Panarin's gone. Kreider's gone. All of them. We're just going to be right back where we started 5 years ago, because he refuses to actually, like, I don't know, sit in his own shit and realize his own shit. Because all that matters is the results. All that matters to them is, oh, we're in the playoffs. Oh, we can sell, playoff tickets. That's more of Drury. This is all that matters to them. And it obviously had been put on full display when they raised a banner saying they were the regular season champions. I mean, all the hints were there. It doesn't take a mastermind to figure out how contempt and how complacent they are with this entire situation. I mean, You just saw your guy with a letter. Mika Zibanejad. I mean, like, what he just said to the media, that quote, what was it? It's like, I don't care if we play like that, but as long as we win. Well, first of all, yeah, we can tell. Second of all, you're not going to win if you play like that, you fucking idiot. I mean,
it's just like
this
that.
This is what we've been saying the whole time. It's like...
It's just that list, though, that I ran through before, and, like, you couldn't turn any of those guys at all into legit parts. And I had people fighting back with me saying, oh, the rebuild wasn't a failure. They went to the conference finals. That doesn't mean that the rebuild was a success. First of all, none of the guys from this rebuild, like I said before, actually had an impact in those conference finals runs. Number two, to go along with that, it's just like you're building around a 32-year-old JT Miller now. Not any of those guys that you collected through the rebuild. Sustained winners that go through rebuilds are teams like the Blackhawks, are teams like Washington, like Pittsburgh, who built up the right way and were in contention for a decade plus minimum and have cups to back it up. That is a successful rebuild, not this shit.
I'll tell you why that whole narrative is a bunch of fucking bullshit, and people just pull it out of their ass because they fucking are, for some reason, in love with these group of players for whatever reason, even though they're serial born losers. But from 2011, so when the Rangers sent out that letter in 2018 saying that they were going to rebuild and take a couple steps back, why did they do that? Because their ultimate goal was to build a team to win a Stanley Cup. Because the previous core, while we all love the previous core, they fought, they played their hearts out every single night.
We took them for granted, to be honest.
Ultimately, they came up short because from 7 years, from 2011 to 2017, they made the playoffs every single year. They went to 3 conference finals in 2012, 2012, 2015, 2014, and they made the Stanley Cup final in 2014. But like I said, they came up short.
Yeah.
So naturally, they get older, and you say, okay, let me take a step back, let me rebuild. They then don't tear everything down completely. They pick and choose who they want to retool. They get lucky with a couple first round picks in Capo Caco, Alexi Lafreniere. They sign a couple guys like Panarin. They extend a couple guys, and they bring in Fox. They extend Mika. Boom, boom, boom. Cry this year. You bring in Igor over, and then they end up going to the conference final. 2 out of 3 years conference final run, but this rebuild was a success because they made it to 2 conference final. So how come then the other one wasn't a success, even though you said you wanted to tear it down and restart again to ultimately win a cup? You didn't achieve your goal of winning a cup. So don't give me this it's a success bullshit because you made the conference finals 2 out of 3 years. Don't give me that, especially when most of your first round picks because if you actually go through the first round picks from 2017 to 2020, most of the guys aren't even here on that roster. Elias Anderson is gone. Vitaly Kravtsov is gone. Nils Lundqvist is gone. Capo Caco is gone. Keandre Miller is, he's been okay. Relatively bust.
Gone.
He plays like he's gone.
Alexi Lafreniere, as of now, bust. And you're relying. And
did you mention Philip Hedl?
Yeah, Philip Hedl too. And your main pieces are JT Miller and Igor Shesterkin. Yeah, great rebuild. What a success. But I guess you end up with a regular season champions banner, so I guess it was all worth it in the end.
And the irony of it all, too, is that they traded, like JT Miller being traded was part of kickstarting this rebuild. Yeah. And now they're circling back and building around him at age 32. That's the most ironic part about this entire thing. So they need him to develop elsewhere to bring him back and say, you know what? Now now we want you here. But let me get some more start comments because I have a few of them here. Can't wait to see Gabe Perreault getting 4 minutes on the 4th line in 2 years, and we go through the same motion where fans blame the player and not the org. Yeah, that's why last year at the deadline, I did not give a fuck if they moved Gabe Perreault to go all in last year. I did not care because this team does not develop prospects. It is impossible, and I've made this my promise now. After this failure of a rebuild, I will not get excited over Ranger prospects until I have a reason to again. I just simply refuse to get excited over it because every time there's a semblance that a prospect might be promising, the second they lace up at the Garden, shit hits the fan. They get buried on the 4th line and they end up getting scratched. So what's the point? Brendan Othman, he's got 10 minutes of ice time each night. Brett Berard, 4th line, scratch, AHL. 4th line, scratch, AHL. It's just this cycle for him. Will Coley's like the one guy, and even then, he's been very streaky in both seasons of his career. And they're still not giving him enough of the light of day to develop.
And the longest leash out of all the young guys, Matt Rempe.
Yep.
Matt Rempe. Him. Why? Because he makes everything entertaining. Because he hits people.
Matt Rempe, I think, is just living proof of what this organization's priority is. Because he sells tickets.
And the fans.
They want to put on a show. That's literally it.
He sells tickets. Like, the crowd goes crazy every time he steps on the ice and throws his body into the glass and misses a hit. Or when he throws a chicken wing and then everyone gets pissed off and throws their $20 beer cans on the ice at the refs. Like, that just shows you where the priorities are with this organization.
No, he's a folk hero. That's literally what he is. Like, that's literally what he is. Like, it's someone like, oh, well, you can't hate this guy. You can't hate this guy. Yeah, you can't hate him. You obviously root for him to do well, but it's like he's doing things that like don't really help that much. And listen, I understand like on the forecheck, like he's been probably the most like noticeable part of our forecheck, which is sad. But it's like still after God. Oh man, I'm not even a Giants fan. I just scoffed at that era. But like he comes out of here and he comes out onto the ice and it's like, do you trust that guy in the 3rd period? Absolutely not. And still yesterday, like we talk about this as time goes on with Matt Rempe, he still has learned nothing. He still has learned nothing. Like I guess maybe he makes like there's a few different plays that he's making. Maybe he's skating well, like a few little plays, but still raising his elbow, still getting these major penalties. Like he's undisciplined. He skates like a walrus in high heels. Like we know what Matt Rempe is capable of, but for some reason, this is the guy that needs to be featured instead of somebody like Berard or Offman, who have shown promise.
And Offman, who you
levels.
spent a first-round pick on and held on in multiple trades.
Drury's
It's just ridiculous.
Drury's first round pick.
Use them or lose them.
Yeah.
And they don't make a decision.
And the fact that, and my brother brought this up too, like the fact that we're sitting here pointing to a second-round pick and Will Cooley being arguably the most effective player from this rebuild is depressing because he's a middle six forward at the end of the day. And this is what's even more sad, though, Chris. Like, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I talked about this in a Twitter DM with someone earlier. Like, the fact that the bar is so low that we have to applaud Rempe for trying every shift, that we're excited that Miller tries every shift. And they're still not giving the production that we need. That tells you all you need to know. And this comment's perfect. In a league with a cap, with the most important thing is developing prospects.
No, it's going up. That doesn't mean anything. No, it's going up. So you can just chuck as much money as you want at anyone. It's fine. Don't worry.
That's why, like,
if there's anybody you want to put money in the hands of someone, it's Chris Drury, right? So I mean, come on. That makes me feel so much better when people say that to me. Kiss my ass.
But like with the Rempe thing, it's like, okay, sure, he's trying, like, and cool, I appreciate that, but I can't applaud him. He's a fucking professional athlete being paid money.
Yeah, of course he should be trying.
Effort's the fucking bare minimum I expect from you.
Yeah.
It's like when people are saying when the Rangers were playing a little bit better and they could have made the playoffs, like back in like January and stuff, and people were saying. and people are saying, like, why aren't you happy? Why don't you want to see them make the? Why aren't you happy about them potentially making the playoffs? Because at least not for me, because I knew, and we all knew here, that this team was a bunch of frauds and they were not anything close to being a President's Trophy caliber winner. But like people are saying, oh, why aren't you happy that they might make the playoffs? Because making the playoffs for them is the fucking bare minimum. I'm not celebrating that. Just like me and you, Evan, we were there at the home opener. We didn't fucking celebrate them raising a stupid fucking regular season champions banner.
Yeah, we openly just like rolled our eyes and face palmed when they were gassing it up.
If they didn't put the banner so high, you could have just pissed on it. Like, I mean,
maybe you could from the Chase Bridge. Honestly, that was the one night I was thankful for the Chase Bridge. It blocked the view of the banner, so I didn't have to look at it. Also worth noting that since the letter in 2018, the Rangers have not drafted a center in either the first round or the second round, the most important position in hockey, and they never drafted one until round 3. There you have it.
Well, they had MIKA, so I mean, come on.
Yeah,
they had MIKA ZIBANEJAD. They don't need to do anything.
They had MIKA, Elias Anderson, who they neglected, Phil Peedle, who unfortunately got concussion issues, and they just gave up on him.
Tommy, don't do that to me. Don't get me started.
They also had Ryan Strome, Artemi Panarin's best buddy.
Yeah.
So, let me see what else. And this was another thing that I didn't even go down this rabbit hole. Both of these comments about how goaltending's the one strength that they have, and they decide, you know what, let's overpay the one thing we're actually good at developing.
Yeah.
Because that's the Ranger way.
Yeah, all in on something that the only thing that we have for surplus. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, which they're not even going to give Garand a chance, it looks like. Howard and Vetrano and Rosovic would all be second in goals on the Rangers this season behind Panarin. Let that sink in for a second. Mikula was mediocre at best in New York, yet flourishes in Florida.
I wonder why.
People refuse to blame that there's a problem here. And it's the same thing when Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko were getting blamed for that 2023 season, but not the guys like Panarin and Zibanejad, who I think combined for 2 or 3 points that series. Lafreniere, who put up 0 points in that series. Nope, it was all Kane and Vetrano's fault.
And I mentioned this before, but I actually liked MIKA. I thought he was good here, but I guess
A lot of
I guess
penalties,
the
but
mighty
that's about
Chris
it.
Drury said, "Nope, let me bring in Eric Gustafson instead." And MIKA goes into Florida, flourishes, and is a vital part of that decor, which went on to win a cup. But hey, but we have a regular season champions banner, so it's okay. Makes up for it.
The
He wasn't
one deadline,
yeah.
the one guy that he's acquired at the deadline that he's actually extended is still
Ruedel.
freaking Chad Ruedel. I guess Will Borgen now, if you want to count it, and Euro Vakanainen, but those also technically weren't deadline moves. I don't know how you want to classify that, but either way, it's like it's just so stupid. I agree with everything you said, but what do you think led to the Lightning in a bottle last year? It's the same thing as 2021-22. Someone on the team had a career year. Like that's the problem is it was never stuff that was sustainable, which is what I tried to say last year, and I was told to jump off a bridge, but I was trying to say last year, like they were way too much of a one-line team. It's great that Panarin's having the career year. It's fun, but one, we need to see him do in the playoffs. Two, it's not
Which he didn't.
sustainable. No,
Which he
well,
didn't.
he did against Washington, which bravo.
Which is the caliber of team that we are right now. So,
and he wasn't even good against Washington.
And then 2000, I'm saying that was his best series too, which is.
Oh yeah, but that's
bad, that's
a very low bar.
Well, you can't tell me they didn't show up. I mean, Chris Kreider with that hat trick in Game 6 against Carolina, that forgives all.
And then 21-22, you had Igor Shesterkin, who had his Vezina season. Again, it was stuff that wasn't sustainable. When you compare that around the league to teams that actually built up their core, and they have guys that are consistently producing at that elite level, like a Braden Point, like a Nikita Kucherov, like an Anthony Cirelli, who's giving production there in Tampa Bay. And, then they do find their diamond in the roughs to fill in the margins, like Brandon Hagel, and get career years out of him, or Florida with MIKA, who we referred to before, finding Forsling off waivers. Like that is the difference, where the Rangers, everything that came to them last year wasn't sustainable. Like the comeback win thing, they had almost 30 comeback wins. That's more than half their wins that were comeback wins. Yeah. That was never going to be sustainable.
But we have Igor for that. He'll hold down the lead, right? He'll hold down the deficit, and we'll, because Igor, when he stands on his head, that's when we're at his best, right? Because that's what we saw last night, and it worked. So, because again, it doesn't matter if we play like shit. Like Mika said, our one of our fearless leaders, it doesn't matter if they play like shit as long as we win. It's all about scoring more goals than the other team. So, and to be honest, when you just magically do that, you're fine. So
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because that was about to be my next point, that when you have a fragile room, most importantly, just to tie this whole conversation together, it's not going to be sustainable what you're doing. It is just not. It's like when the Mets were getting, in 2022, were getting they caught a lot of lightning in a bottle. They were carried mostly by Pete Alonso with that offense, which again was not going to be sustainable. And they got a lot of things go their way that year, with guys like Scherzer, who pitched better than we thought at his age, and just what they got out of that rotation.
Edwin Diaz was the most dominant arm in the entire game. Yeah.
It's just like all those things that weren't sustainable.
Adam Ottavino was considered valuable. Like
Jeff McNeil won the batting title.
Jeff McNeil won the batting title.
Yeah, it's just like, it's just all that stuff that we pointed to last year and said, it's great that they're doing this, but be aware that it's most likely not sustainable. That's why I was pointing those things out. It wasn't to sit here and say that I'm not enjoying wins or anything. It's just, you have to be aware that this could catch up at some point.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
this is
that
why, like,
whole-
and this is why, like, we talked about it a bunch last year, like when we were talking in the group chat and stuff, and we were saying that last year, maybe not in terms of points, because I'm not sure in terms of points, like who the worst President's Trophy team was to win it, but last year for me, they were the worst President's Trophy team I've ever seen win it, because the play and how they looked on the ice did not match to a team that was supposed to finish number one in the league. And sure, and majority of that was because of the second line. They were a one-line team last year. That's where the majority of the offense came from. If it wasn't from the power play, because not Mika, but Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, they all had career years,
Yeah.
and they were the main driving force. But
It was a
behind the-
one-line team. It was
behind the success.
Like,
And I mean, the only thing I'll say is because, like, at the start of last year, from October to about Thanksgiving, when the Rangers had that game at the Garden against the Bruins where they won 7-4, the defense was actually really solid. For the first time, I can actually remember that the Rangers, as a five-man unit on the ice, played a really solid defense as a group. The 1-3-1 was working well. They were limiting chances, and like, well, we were saying before, it's like, okay, cool, maybe they're a one-line team for now, but at least I can look at this defense and say, okay, cool, they're playing really well. They've established a really good part of this team. Now, maybe if they could just get to the deadline and then add other offensive contributors, then maybe they could be a sustainable winner come playoff time. But no, what happened after that Bruins game, the defense entirely fell apart from like 1 or 2, 3 games over here, but majority, we never saw that defensive structure again. And their main additions at the deadline last year, instead of going to get a guy like Jay Gensel, Chris Drury decides, let me go get Alex Wemberg and Jack Rosvick, because that's the answer. That will take us over the top.
Yeah,
that's
it's like
it. We just need a
contradicts-
right winger for Kreider and Mika, right? The 14,000th right winger that they need together.
It just contradicts to the entire thing that Drury's like, yeah, I believe in this core, but let's not reward them. So it's stupid. And another thing we also said last year a lot is that when people were making the 94 parallels because of all the shit that lined up, it's like that team actually
Messier
had
for coach.
And people are still, by the way, making these parallels to this day with the 90s and how this is similar to 92, 93, and that, you know, maybe Miller's their Messier and they could tinker things around the offseason to turn things around. The difference is that team had more talent. That team was deeper. And Mark Messier walked in with multiple rings on his finger, unlike on his hand, rather, unlike JT Miller, who doesn't have a single ring to show for.
Yeah, that's the other part of that is also the argument against that is that's a narrative. We don't live in, like, you know, a fantasy world where everything is meant to be, because
Everything's a parallel.
You know, everything's a parallel because everybody needs to sit in like these Hollywood scripts or something. Like, I just, again, it's also a different game than it was in 94 as well. So, I mean, that whole thing about
No
last
salary
year, I
cap
mean,
either.
Yeah, there was no
So
salary
they were
cap.
actually able to
I mean,
tinker the roster if they needed to more.
Yeah,
Also-
it's really like what I was talking, like what people in the chat were talking about, like career years from Panarin and Trocheck and Lafreniere. It's like that was basically what was carrying them completely offensively. Of course, like the defensive effort was subpar the entire time. And I mean, then other teams, they realized, because like they're you know a team, you know, like an actual team that has a system, like they realized that they're like, oh these guys are absolute, they have shit running down their leg in their own zone. They don't respond well to this type of neutral zone play. Let's do this. And where is that line gone? It's completely broken up now. Completely broken up. And that's what they leaned on.
Yeah.
Or, you know, whatever.
I just want to jump in before I let you go, Matt, just because some of these comments are literally saying the thoughts I was about to say. They threw a lot of money for that cup. Where is their Mike Keenan coming from if they're going to turn things around? And then this too, I mean, this is also relevant to today, because I would say that there are no future Hall of Famers on this team right now. maybe you could argue one player if his career but even Adam Fox is the one guy
We
I'm
traded him
arguing
away. Kako, he's gone.
the one guy that I would argue he's trending downward a bit in Adam Fox. But yeah, Mike Richter had 6 Hall of Famers that 93-94 season. Lundqvist had 3 his entire career. Where are the future Hall of Famers on this roster? Where
the
are
man
they?
that's going up in the rafters.
Look up. Look up. I mean, there was Patrick Kane here, but he was the problem, so that doesn't count, right?
Yeah, he was mean.
He was a meanie pants.
Also, let's just not just throw away this factor. I mean, not that I think it's a big deal or anything, but Mark Messier is also third on the all-time point list, and he was just casually one of the better players that ever played in the NHL and laced up the skates. You know, no offense to JT Miller, but JT Miller is nowhere near being one of the better players in NHL history. So let's put that aside when we compare that Messier is the next. I mean, sorry, that JT Miller is our next Mark Messier. Like, give me a break.
Was Messier an alpha male?
Yeah. Mark Messier won 5 Stanley Cups and captained the Edmonton Oilers to a Stanley Cup in 1990. So
he's got more cups than Gretzky, and we're comparing him to unreal.
And this is exactly my point. Like, they'd have to buy their tickets into the Hall of Fame. There is no turning this around. And the only current Ranger with a chance at the Hall of Fame is Panarin because he is the 3rd best scorer among undrafted free agents in NHL history, and that's a maybe. And even with that maybe, like,
he is over.
Are we going to sit here?
But it's like, you know,
are we going to sit here and say that Panarin, who we've seen shit the bed in the playoffs, is, you know, like, even though he could be a future Hall of Famer, is good enough?
Statistically, yes. Statistically, yes. But in terms of being him, no. He's basically just the parallel of Aaron Judge. You want to talk about parallels? Aaron Judge, nowhere to be found.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to talk about it, that's the one parallel.
I don't say that for Yankee fans, but
that's the thing, though, is that where is the Mike Keenan coming into this locker room? And I can tell you right now, I don't trust
even.
I don't trust Chris Drury to make the changes. Like, that's what it all circles back to.
And even if you bring in a Mike Keenan, you think this core is going to last under a Mike Keenan type?
Fuck no.
They're crying about Gerard Gallant and fucking Peter Laviolette. Like, you want to talk about assholes? I mean, Mike Keenan was a fucking prick. He was an asshole. This guy benched Brian Leach and say he was going to trade him.
They wouldn't even be able to last under Tortorella.
I can't disagree with this comment.
Under Tortorella, if give them,
they wouldn't even last under him.
Give them 1 day in training camp with no pucks and just all skating, and they'd fucking quit right there, and they'd cry like.
I wouldn't put it past Drury to bring in Mike Keenan right now. I wouldn't. I seriously wouldn't. It's not the right move whatsoever, but it's like
Keandre Miller would cry if Keenan ever walked into this locker room. The entire room would. That, like
MIKA
Matt
would
said,
be
there's
in the
no
fetal
one
position for 80 straight games.
Yeah, they would quit in training camp if they had a Keenan type. Like, that's my point. Like, you can make the parallels all you want to 92, 93. There is way too much that has to happen for them to turn it the next season to anything what happened in 93 and 94. There has to be so much shit to happen. They have to revamp the core while also bringing in players that will help them win now. They have to bring in a head coach that will demand discipline. They need more than one guy in their analytics department, and they need a new GM. So if all those things happen, sure, we could have the conversation of it being a parallel, but we know that
Evan,
that's
O.J. Simpson passed away. O.J. Simpson passed away, and then what else happened? So much stupid.
It was like the records in the
that's
playoffs.
What you're hanging on to. Seriously, like we'll go out of our way for that, but it's like, oh, boo analytics, fuck that shit. You know, we'll do this. Well, there's a parallel here from 1994, and there's something from here from 1994.
Hey man,
it's like if you're gonna put in that much effort for that, like you can't sit down and be like, oh, this is a little suspect right here. No, it's all just about O.J. Simpson and what is it, the Olympics or whatever. I forget what it was.
They thought OJ Simpson was our grimace.
Hey man, 1994 they started the playoffs 7-0. Last year they started the playoffs 7-0.
Yep.
Just one little difference.
No, yeah, OJ Simpson was our grimace.
Yep.
Well, I don't know what our equivalent to OMG was, but you know, we'll find it. If they quit in training camp, they would have to organize the training camp out of state because there's no quit in New York, right?
That's such a great comment. That's such a great one.
Such a Steven comment too. This is why I said we needed to hire Babcock to get all these guys to waive their no move clause. Chris Shorey still wouldn't trade them. Even if you turn over the entire roster, it takes at least 5 years to even get to a final, and that's far
And I'm
from
fine
likely.
with
This
that.
team isn't winning shit in the next decade. I would go beyond a decade at this point because, like we laid out, they're trying to do the Boston Bruins thing where they're trying to stretch the window out for way too goddamn long when it's not the right decision. It's not going to work. And then you're going to be in this phase for 4 years where you'll be mediocre on the back end of Igor's contract. He's going to be the most expensive backup, but you won't be bad enough probably to get good picks. And then you have to replenish the farm all over again. Like you might be talking longer.
Damage
than
is
that.
done. Damage is so done. It's so done. By the way, John, I agree with Valley Cat being like the only I get that, but I can tell you right now he wouldn't have brought in Carson Soucy if that was actually the case.
No, they're just no.
Yeah, that
single-handedly like one of the worst defensemen in all of hockey. Like,
hey, listen, respect our tank commander. But this was, this was also the other parallel. There was an earthquake in '94.
Oh my god,
the earthquake.
Forgot about that too.
Jesus,
ridiculous. But like that's the problem though with like you could overhaul the roster all you want. They still have to gel together. Like it's not something. That's why I said in our group chat earlier, and I'll say it on stream. The only way this team is winning a cup sooner than we think is if they luck their way into one, which they tried to do the past 3 seasons. So
that's the thing. They already got it. Like what I listed like earlier. They already got the tools to do it, and they still found a way to fuck it up. Also in record time. Like.
Also, it's not a rebuild if you luck into 2 lottery wins and stack the team with veterans. Yeah. The Sharks play Celebrini and Smith in their top 6 as teenagers. Laugh couldn't get a top 6 role until he was 22 years old. And that's my point. But now it's like, now that he needs to be held accountable, they won't. But they waited way too long to let him get a role. Elias Anderson, they just basically bullied out of the organization entirely. Kravtsov, Chris Shorey just did not give a flying fuck about him and wanted him gone the second that he became the GM. It's like they just never cared to give the time to these guys. And I get that, sometimes it does fall on players. Like some players just simply don't have it. But to sit here and not blame the organization with a laundry list of players that they fucked up, it's just being naive.
Yeah.
And who needs analytics when you have Tanner Glenn, Jed Ortmeyer scouting talent?
It also goes to show other guys producing somewhere else once they leave here. It also goes to show there. It's like what hasn't changed with this entire situation out of all these players that have gone through here and were gone. It's the organization. It's the same organization. We talk about this just as much with the coaching staff of them bringing in another coach. This is now 3 coaches in 7 seasons. So, what has to change? What hasn't changed? It's this core. But unfortunately, the guy up top said, no, let's lock this thing in for an eternity because we won the President's Trophy. because we had results, man. That's it. That's all they
Forget-
said. That's their whole substance.
And forget doubling down. They're getting to a point where they're about to triple down on this core because
Yeah.
they brought him in. Drury doubled down on it multiple times by giving them just far too many chances. And like Matt said, not moving guys that they should have sooner. And now they're about to triple down. And the only guy that might go, and this is a maybe, is Chris Kreider. And I agree with this. And this aggravates me as well because of the fact that Chris Kreider's checked out. Why is Brent Othman not playing over Chris Kreider? Why are you not prioritizing the guy that you didn't want to move in any of
he's
the
not ready.
past 3 deadlines to get talent to help them win in those years? And now you're burying him 4 years removed from his draft year, which he should be ready by now, considering what other guys in his draft class are doing. But you're playing him with Matt Rempe and Johnny Brodzinski. Why can't they develop talent though, right? Why hasn't Othman looked good, right? I wonder, and it's like what Nick said too, with how they don't even utilize their depth properly, because Johnny Brodzinski should be a guy that plays in the top 9 when there's an injury. He's not a 4th line checking forward, but they play him in this role that just does not make sense for him. Like, bring up Bleed if you're going to play a guy on the 4th line. Like, bring up a guy that makes
third
sense.
line last night. That third line last night.
Did anyone see Yuso Parsonen? Because I didn't.
God, he's been awful.
What the
3 Drury acquisitions. Been sitting mostly in suit and ties. Thank you for the $10, Jay Lewis. Othman gets power play time and he succeeds in Hartford, yet gets scratched, and the Rangers don't put him in a position to succeed. Organization issue, and the Rangers vets are mentally soft. That is the problem. Yeah, and they don't reward the fact that Othman should get those minutes over those mentally soft players, but
I'm sorry, time to wake up
Fun.
is killing me with this comment.
And Brennan, and the thing is, like, Brennan Othman was Drury's. And the thing is, like Brennan Othman is Chris Drury's first ever pick as a general manager. You would think if a guy's his first pick, like, he would try to get him in the lineup and try to put him in a spot to succeed. But no, it's 4 years past him being picked in 2021 as the 19th pick in that draft, and you're burying him on the 4th line with Matt Rempe getting minimal minutes. I mean, 8 minutes a night. Like, it's just it's the same thing. I brought it up before, but like, because when we were on Joey's podcast, but the same thing with Arthur Kaliev. Now, look, I didn't want Arthur Kaliev because when I watched him in LA, I just didn't see anything from him. But like Chris Drury said, okay, cool, let me give him a shot. Why not? It's not like we're a good team right now. Let me see if I could stick him in on a line, and let's see if he produces. You claim him off waivers, and you don't even fucking play him. So what's the point? I mean, Evan, you brought it up,
and he still ends up getting hurt.
I mean, Evan, you brought it up earlier before we came on. And you said how there's a dysfunction between the front office and the coaching staff. Well, clearly, because why the fuck would you claim a player if you know Peter Laviolette's not going to play him in the first place? It just makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, and especially a player that you're claiming because they could have upside. They're not claiming him because of the fact that they need to add to their collection of healthy scratches and 4th line checking forwards. You claim him because he's 23 years old, was a 1st-round pick, and you think maybe there's something there.
Hell of a shot on him.
I wish they gave him more of a chance with how the season went. That's the other thing too with Othman. It's like, why are you not giving the kid a chance with where the season is? You're not doing anything in the playoffs. Just play the fucking kid. It's just so stupid. And this too, I mean, every time a prospect doesn't thrive, people say, oh, he's not made for New York.
He ain't made for the bright lights, baby.
It's the same shit every time. It's like,
he's too soft. Get him out of here. That sound familiar?
It's just one game.
It is just one game, folks. One game.
It's not like we had 69 of these before, but it's just one game.
Yeah. Not like we saw this coming from a mile away. No.
I disagree with this, though, Chris, because before they extended Igor, like Matt and I said for months, they had a way out of this. If you decided by trading Igor and signifying to the veterans, we're going in a rebuilding direction. We are going in a different direction. The veterans would have waived. Why would
But
they want to be
who-
here?
But who trades a Vezina Trophy winner? Who does that?
That's so it is on Drury though, because he also gave most of those guys the contract. So he did have a choice. He didn't have to triple down on it. He willingly decided, because the day that he traded Jacob Trouba, he could have said, you know
Yeah.
what, this is the start of
that
us tearing shit down, and we're gonna start to build this whole thing back up again. And he, the same day, gets trigger happy
day almost
and
killed me.
extends
Not-
Igor Shurkin.
not only like triple down, but because Chris Drury, we can all agree he fucked up the offseason, because really in the offseason, that's when he should have started the retool. That's when he should have forced out Trouba, because he could have if he really wanted to, and he should have traded away guys like Igor and Kreider, but he didn't. He fucked up. And most of the time as a GM in professional sports, once you fuck up the first time, you don't get a chance to redeem yourself. Chris Drury had a magical, he had a golden opportunity handed to him on a silver platter when Pat Verbeek willingly came to him and said, I will take Jacob Trouba off your hands. I will take his entire contract. I'll even give you a player in return for him as well, and a draft pick. And he goes, cool, free up $8 million. Let's see. I could either, I was given this golden opportunity. I just got rid of this really bad player on a poor contract. I could either now look at what this roster is and retool and get rid of guys that I need to, or I could be a dumbass like I am usually and double down and say, it's not a sustainable way to overpay a goaltender and rely on him to win a cup. You know what? Let's go with that one, because the last couple cup winners have won like that.
And the other, I love how people just think he's immune to criticism because he was handed this core. Look at the difference between him and Brisebois, who was also handed the core. What did Brisebois do? Took it over the top. What did Chris Drury do? Run this thing further into the damn ground. And this is another great comment, that the whole Igor contract, it's similar to the Trouba contract, where they were bidding against themselves. Igor didn't reset the market for shit. Because what other goalie has got a big contract since he signed it? And who is? Could somebody tell me which goalie's getting a big contract coming up? I'll wait.
Well, it's got to be tons of like the top 15 guys in the last 20 games and expected I mean, all of those guys have to be. There's got to be the highest paid goalie on that list, right?
Surprisingly, no.
No, that's fucking crazy.
I hate to let you down, but no, surprisingly not. And it's just like, it's just so stupid how they continue to, again, not learn from mistakes. They bid against
performances
themselves.
like last night just completely justifies it, and it all just goes down the drain. It's like, no, this is not a good thing. Like, it's not a good thing.
It's like the argument that we had this offseason with Pete Alonso, how everyone's like, give him whatever money he wants. Why would you bid against yourself? There's no reason to bid against yourself. It's stupid. Just stop.
He didn't want to figure out that somebody else will give him that money. Well, because no one's that stupid. That's why. But he still ended up doing it anyway. That day that you were talking about when Trouba, because obviously those were the two biggest headlines going into the season this year, was the Jacob Trouba drama, and then the Igor contract. Was like those were the top two stories going into this season, and it all just was just a roller coaster of, oh my God, Trouba's finally gone, and then nope, pay Igor and just keep they didn't even give us a chance to breathe. Because you knew, because you obviously knew, because of the Igor merchant that Chris Drury is, that he was immediately, any chance he was going to get, he was going to chuck money at him. But it's like, it's so obvious how predictable he is that it's like, it's so scary that it's like you would not trust this guy to run a magazine stand, let alone a hockey team. It's so scary how insane this guy is.
And that's the thing.
It's nuts.
And that's the thing too, because all we hear is the cap's going up. There's been a entire sequel of moves where they're overpaying guys, and like we said when Igor got that contract, every dollar counts because everyone's like, well, realistically, if he made 8.5 like you want him to, what's an extra 3 million of a difference? Well, when you factor in that, when you factor in Will Borgen, who's overpaid by probably 2 million, when you factor in Euro Vakanainen, who shouldn't be making 1.5 million to be a seventh defenseman, Carson Soucy, who's making 3.2, you're talking about over $10 million there that could be allocated to, I don't know, a top 6 forward that they've needed.
Not to
for
mention
a
whatever
while.
scary contract they're going to give to Keandre Miller. So it's
That
like,
too, and it's like that could be allocated to, I don't know, a top 4 defenseman to play next to Adam Fox.
well, Keandre Miller
Silly
is that
me
guy.
though.
Keandre Miller is that top 2 pair defenseman, you know?
And this is the thing: overpay every player on the roster. Let's see how that goes. We just saw it happen. Let's run a sequel
Just
though
did
now.
it. They just did it.
They did it, and let's run a sequel now of it because the cap's going up. Like that's
We
why
are far from playing pretend here, folks.
playing Halloween. That's why Matt and I were saying though, it's just like these are lateral moves. What they're doing, it's all lateral because Carson Soucy or Ryan Lindgren, the Carson Soucy, Trouba the Borgen.
It's not even lateral. They took a step back.
Justin, my man, by the
This
way,
point.
thank you for noticing. Awesome.
Soucy
The
is
bathtub
great
donkey
Um,
shirt.
Do you
What
believe?
shirt do I have on?
Do you do you believe what Larry Brooks says that everything went off the rails for this team because they couldn't handle the locker room without Trouba and Goudreau? No, the locker room was broken a long time ago, but they couldn't handle a trainer getting fired.
The 2 alpha males.
They couldn't handle a trainer getting fired. The locker room was fractured a while ago.
No, the thing that pissed me off last night, and the fact that it just shows how weak and soft this group was when fucking Erasmus Anderson goes over to Igor mid-game and goes, "You're overpaid," and that gets under their skin and throws them off their game. If that gets you under your skin and that throws you off your game, then that just tells me all I need to know about this team.
Huberto was
mean, he
laughing in their
cooked.
faces.
I mean, yeah, Erasmus Anderson was speaking facts. He was completely right.
He
But
cooked.
It's just like Huberto was laughing in their faces last night too. It was pathetic. And this is the point. Yeah,
Dude,
mentally soft teams.
One thing I will
go
say about
nowhere.
last night, the one thing I am proud of from last night, hey, Joe Micheletti. Ooh, man, I was proud to listen to him for 60 minutes straight. I mean, that was top-notch stuff. I mean, he was ready to he was literally ready to jump on the ice with him. Like literally he was done.
I love at one point he was just like, "Yeah, they're terrible in their own end right now, Sam." And Steve Valiquette too. It's just like after the second period when he was just like, the first period they played a really horrible game. I didn't think they doubled down in the second period with it, but they somehow managed to be worse.
Sam Rosen gassing up Max Fried.
it's the connection.
What a joke. Oh man. That's literally all I'm watching for is the final days of Sam Rosen. That's literally it. Like I right now I could even care less, like at this point. I'm so done. Like I'm sorry, and it's not like to sound like I know I understand that it comes off of as the fake fan or the fan that wants to be right, but it's like, do you actually want to see this team in the playoffs?
No.
Like, who
No.
actually wants this?
I don't.
If you do, you have a humiliation fetish. You 100% do.
I don't, and the sad part is it would make me more money if they made the playoffs because people would come here to watch me lose my damn mind, and I don't want them in the playoffs. I care way more about my mental health at this point, and that would be better for me. The sad part is that Sam Rosen...
You can't pay me to watch that shit.
You can at this point. The sad part is it's Sam Rosen's last season. You'd think they'd try for a legend like him. They don't try for each other in that locker room.
No.
Why would they try for Sam Rosen? That's the harsh reality. And I agree with you, obviously, but they can't try for anyone, so they wouldn't try for him either.
Half of the roster probably is like, who's Sam Rosen? They're so unaware of what's going on. It's like, I mean, nobody picked their head up last night to complete a pass last night. So I mean, nobody's actually like, you know, unbelievable. I mean,
I'm gonna read a few more comments and then wrap this up because I don't want to go for
before
too
all
much
of us
longer
get
here.
canceled. Yeah.
Rangers will be in the Cancun playoffs. Will I be covering it? No,
Will Panarin show up?
but at least they'll. Yeah, will they even show up to Cancun? They're actually gonna get upset because their favorite flight attendant's gonna get fired. So they're
Yeah.
gonna protest and not get on the plane.
Yeah.
Oh yes, this is the 2019 Blues.
Yep.
Yes, the
So,
2023 Panthers.
Yeah, I think you mean the
Hang on a
24
second.
Kings.
And
Wait,
you
no, no,
and
I
you know
think
who the
mean
Blues
24
had?
Kings.
Sammy Blais. all the parallels. The parallels. Kiss my ass.
This is also true that I don't want this team earning a single ounce of playoff revenue. And the fact that they had that memo that they're going to raise the price of season tickets if they make the playoffs is just hilarious. Like, you think that justifies being there for 4 extra happy to be there games, justifies raising the prices for season tickets? Fuck you. Just stupid. The earthquake, yeah. The earthquake, baby.
The only thing that's missing, and to be honest, we always say like, oh, you never thought it can get any worse. The only thing is missing is if they raise a banner next year that just says 2024 to 2025 regular season. That's it. Just do that. Just hang that banner. Because that existed. That's why.
We showed up.
We tried. We battled, as
We battled,
Mickey
yeah.
Callaway would say.
We had some good looks.
We made more friendships. We didn't lose games. We made friendships.
The
Ridiculous.
earthquake. OJ Grimace. Yeah, it's unfortunate that casuals will still show up to these games to give money. Unfortunately. All right. I think I'm going to wrap up the stream here because I don't want to go too much longer. It's going to get dangerous like last night if I continue to let the stream go on longer. But do you guys want to give any final parting thoughts before I end the stream here?
Let's go Mets. Make me
Yeah,
happy, Mets, please.
A week.
A week away. A week away.
Please.
There's a few more hours until we could officially say we're a week away. Yeah. So I'm going to end it here. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe. Let's go Mets.